If you're over 60, I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say, because this might be the most important breakfast conversation you've heard in years. Not about calories, not about dieting, but about something far more serious and far more silent: muscle loss, especially in your legs. Because here's the truth no one warns you about: sarcopenia doesn't happen overnight, but one day you wake up and realize the stairs feel steeper, your balance feels uncertain, and standing up from a chair takes just a little more effort than it used to. And most people think that's just aging. But it's not. It's biology responding to what you eat, what you don't eat, and especially how you start your day. Now, Dr. Barbara O'Neill often reminds us that the body is incredibly intelligent. It is constantly listening to the signals we send it. And the very first signal you send every single morning is breakfast. That meal tells your body whether it should rebuild, repair, strengthen, or slowly break down. And today, I want to talk to you about a specific way of eating in the morning that directly supports muscle preservation, leg strength, and cellular repair, sometimes so quickly that people feel a difference within 24 hours. Not because it's magic, but because it finally gives the body what it's been quietly begging for. You see, after 60, your muscles become resistant to rebuilding. This is a well-documented phenomenon in science called anabolic resistance. The muscles don't respond to food the same way they did when you were younger. You can eat the same meals you've always eaten, and yet your legs still weaken. Your thighs shrink, your grip strength fades, and no one explains why. The problem isn't that you're not eating enough. The problem is that you're not eating the right signals. Most breakfasts today are doing the exact opposite of what aging muscles need. Toast, cereal, fruit juice, jam, pastries, even so-called healthy granola. They spike blood sugar, raise insulin, and tell the body to store energy, not rebuild tissue. Insulin is a storage hormone, not a repair hormone, and when insulin is constantly elevated, muscle repair gets pushed aside. The body says, we're in storage mode, not construction mode. Over time, muscles shrink, especially in the legs where the largest muscle groups live. Dr. Barbara O'Neill often emphasizes that healing and rebuilding occur when the body is calm, nourished, and mineral-rich. Muscles are not built from sugar. They are built from amino acids, minerals, healthy fats, and proper digestion. And breakfast is the perfect opportunity to deliver those raw materials when your body is most receptive. Now let's talk about what actually reverses the message of muscle loss. Protein, yes, but not just any protein. Highly bioavailable protein that contains sufficient leucine, the amino acid that flips the muscle building switch. After 60, that switch becomes harder to turn on. You need a stronger signal. That's why light, sugary breakfasts quietly accelerate sarcopenia, while nourishing, protein-rich breakfasts slow it down dramatically. But here's the part that surprises most people. It's not just protein, it's the combination. Protein without fat doesn't work as well. Protein without minerals doesn't work at all. And protein eaten on top of a sugar spike is partially wasted. The body can only rebuild muscle when blood sugar is stable, digestion is strong, and inflammation is low. Think about your legs for a moment. They are not just muscles. They are circulation pumps. They move blood back to the heart. They stabilize the hips and spine. When leg muscles weaken, balance suffers, falls increase, and independence slowly erodes. This is why sarcopenia is not cosmetic, it's functional. And it starts with what you feed your body when you wake up. A powerful breakfast for someone over 60 should do 3 things at once. It should stabilize blood sugar, provide building blocks for muscle, and deliver minerals that allow nerves and muscles to communicate properly. When those 3 happen together, the body responds quickly. Sometimes within a day, people report feeling steadier on their feet, stronger when standing, more confident walking. One of the biggest mistakes people make is skipping breakfast or having only coffee. Caffeine suppresses appetite and raises stress hormones. Cortisol breaks down muscle. So if your morning begins with stress chemicals and no nutrition, your body starts the day in breakdown mode. Over weeks and months, this contributes significantly to leg weakness. Dr. Barbara O'Neill frequently talks about the importance of nourishing the body early, not flooding it with stimulants. Real nourishment tells the nervous system that it's safe to rebuild. And safety is essential for healing. Another overlooked factor is mineral deficiency. Magnesium, potassium, calcium, sodium, all essential for muscle contraction and relaxation. Modern diets are severely depleted in minerals. And when minerals are low, muscles fatigue faster, cramps increase, and strength declines. A breakfast that includes mineral-rich whole foods quietly restores what the body has lost overnight. Digestion also changes with age. Stomach acid tends to decrease. That means protein digestion becomes less efficient. This is why gentle, well-prepared foods matter so much. When digestion improves, amino acids actually reach the muscles instead of passing through unused. Now let me say something very important. No breakfast alone can replace movement. But without the right breakfast, movement becomes harder, recovery slows, and muscles continue to shrink. Nutrition sets the stage. Movement completes the signal. People often ask, can you really feel a difference in 24 hours? And the answer is yes, not because muscle fibers suddenly grow overnight, but because inflammation drops, blood sugar stabilizes, and nerve signaling improves. When nerves talk to muscles more efficiently, strength immediately feels better. This is why people stand up more easily, walk more confidently, and feel less shaky so quickly. Sarcopenia thrives in an environment of insulin spikes, inflammation, mineral deficiency, and inactivity. Change that environment and the body responds faster than most people expect. Think of your body as a construction site. For years, it's been missing materials. You can't expect strong walls if bricks never arrive. The right breakfast delivers those bricks early in the day when the body is ready to use them. Dr. Barbara O'Neill often says that the body is self-healing when given the right conditions. Muscles are no exception. They are living tissue. They respond to care. They respond to respect. This is especially important for women over 60 who lose muscle faster than men and are often told to eat less. Less food does not equal better health. Better nourishment equals better health. Muscle is protective. It stabilizes blood sugar, supports joints, and prevents falls. And for men, the story is similar. Testosterone declines with age, but nutrition can support what remains. Protein, fats, and minerals are essential for hormonal balance. Low-fat, high-sugar breakfasts undermine this process completely. What you eat in the morning sets the tone for the entire day. If you start with sugar, you crave sugar. If you start with nourishment, your appetite stabilizes, cravings diminish, energy becomes steady, and your body stays in repair mode longer. Many people tell me they feel stronger simply because they're no longer fighting blood sugar crashes. Strength isn't just muscle size, it's coordination, endurance, and confidence. Let's also talk about inflammation. Chronic inflammation accelerates muscle breakdown. Highly processed breakfast foods inflame the gut, the joints, and the muscles. Whole natural foods calm the system. When inflammation drops, muscles respond better to even gentle movement like walking. This is why some people say, I didn't even exercise, but I felt stronger. The inflammation barrier was removed. And here's something rarely discussed. Muscles store amino acids. When you don't eat enough protein, the body steals from muscle to support vital organs. That means your legs literally get eaten from the inside to keep your heart and brain alive. That's not a failure, it's survival. But you can stop it by supplying what the body needs. Breakfast is not the enemy. A poor breakfast is the enemy. The right breakfast is one of the most powerful anti-aging tools available. Now imagine waking up tomorrow and giving your body a completely different signal. Instead of stress and sugar, you offer calm and nourishment. Instead of breakdown, you invite rebuilding. That single choice repeated daily compounds over time. Strength returns, confidence grows, fear of falling diminishes. This isn't about chasing youth, it's about preserving function. It's about walking without fear, standing without hesitation, living independently for as long as possible. Dr. Barbara O'Neill reminds us that nature provides what the body needs when we respect natural principles: simplicity, whole foods, proper digestion, balanced blood sugar. If you've been feeling weaker, slower, or less stable, don't assume it's inevitable. Ask yourself what signals you've been sending your body each morning. Then gently change them. Your legs are listening. Your muscles are listening. Your nervous system is listening. And sometimes all it takes to change the direction of aging is one meal eaten with intention at the right time of day. If this message resonated with you, stay with me, because on this channel we don't just talk about aging. We talk about aging intelligently, calmly, and with respect for the incredible design of the human body. Your strength is not gone. It's waiting for the right signal. After the age of 60, muscle loss is not something that suddenly appears one morning, and it is not simply the unavoidable price of getting older, even though that is what most people have been told for decades. Sarcopenia develops quietly, almost invisibly year after year, shaped by daily habits that seem harmless at the time, especially what happens first thing in the morning. The body is constantly adapting to signals, and aging muscles are particularly sensitive to those signals because they are already under pressure from hormonal changes, reduced nerve stimulation, and slower recovery processes. When the wrong signals are repeated every day, The body adapts by conserving energy, breaking down muscle tissue, and prioritizing survival over strength, and this is why so many people over 60 feel weaker without ever understanding what actually caused it. One of the biggest misunderstandings about aging is the belief that muscle loss is simply a result of time passing. In reality, muscle tissue is metabolically expensive, and the body will not maintain it unless it is clearly needed and properly supported. After 60, the body becomes more selective, almost cautious about where it invests energy. If the daily environment suggests scarcity, stress, or instability, the body responds by letting go of muscle, especially in the legs where muscle mass is highest and energy demands are greatest. This is not failure, it is adaptation. The problem is that modern lifestyles send the wrong signals every single morning, convincing the body that rebuilding muscle is unnecessary or even risky. Breakfast plays a central role in this process because it is the first metabolic instruction the body receives after hours of fasting. During sleep, the body enters a repair state using stored nutrients to maintain vital organs. By morning, nutrient reserves are lower, stress hormones naturally rise, and the body is waiting for guidance. What you eat at that moment tells the body whether it should continue repairing and rebuilding or switch into emergency energy management. For many older adults, breakfast consists of refined carbohydrates, sugar, or sometimes nothing at all, and each of these choices quietly accelerates muscle loss. When breakfast is dominated by sugar or refined starches, blood glucose rises rapidly, triggering an insulin response. Insulin's primary job is to move glucose into cells and store excess energy, not to build muscle. In fact, elevated insulin suppresses fat burning and shifts the body into storage mode. For younger people, this may not cause immediate harm, but after 60, muscles become resistant to growth signals, a process known as anabolic resistance. This means muscles require stronger and clearer signals to rebuild, and insulin spikes blur those signals. The body receives mixed instructions, and in response it chooses the safest option, which is to conserve energy and reduce muscle mass over time. Skipping breakfast creates a different but equally damaging signal. When the body receives no nourishment in the morning, stress hormones like cortisol remain elevated for longer. Cortisol breaks down muscle tissue to release amino acids into the bloodstream so vital organs can function. While this mechanism is essential in emergencies, repeating it daily teaches the body that muscle tissue is expendable. Over months and years, this contributes significantly to sarcopenia, especially in the legs, hips, and lower back, which are already vulnerable due to reduced activity levels in older age. What makes this process particularly dangerous is that it happens quietly. Muscle loss does not cause pain in its early stages. There is no alarm bell, no sharp warning sign. Instead, there is a gradual change in how the body feels. Standing up requires more effort. Walking speed slows slightly. Balance feels less certain. These changes are often dismissed as normal aging, but they are actually the physical expression of long-term metabolic signals that told the body muscle was no longer a priority. Another critical factor is digestion, which changes with age and directly affects how breakfast influences muscle health. Stomach acid production often declines after 60, making protein digestion less efficient. When protein is poorly digested, amino acids are not absorbed effectively even if total intake appears adequate. This means many older adults are technically eating enough protein but functionally absorbing far less. When breakfast does not account for this change, muscles remain undernourished despite regular meals, reinforcing the cycle of muscle breakdown. The body is also highly sensitive to mineral balance, and modern breakfasts are severely lacking in essential minerals like magnesium, potassium, and sodium in natural forms. These minerals are crucial for muscle contraction, nerve signaling, and energy production. Without them, muscles fatigue easily and respond poorly to exercise or daily movement. When mineral intake is chronically low, the body reduces muscle mass to match its diminished ability to support muscular function. This is another way the body adapts to perceived limitations, and breakfast choices play a major role in setting this tone. Hormonal changes further amplify the impact of poor morning nutrition. After 60, levels of growth hormone, testosterone, and estrogen decline, all of which are important for muscle maintenance. Nutrition cannot completely reverse these changes, but it can either support or undermine what remains. A breakfast that spikes blood sugar and insulin worsens hormonal imbalance, while one that stabilizes blood glucose and provides adequate building blocks supports muscle signaling pathways. Over time, these small daily differences compound into significant changes in strength and mobility. The legs are particularly affected because they contain the largest muscles in the body and require the most energy to maintain. From an evolutionary perspective, if resources are limited, the body prioritizes vital organs over locomotion. Poor breakfast habits mimic resource scarcity at a cellular level, even in the presence of abundant food. The body does not evaluate food by quantity alone, it evaluates quality, timing, and metabolic impact. When breakfast fails to provide clear signals of abundance and stability, leg muscles are among the first to be sacrificed. This process explains why many people feel weaker despite eating regular meals throughout the day. The damage is not caused by one meal but by the repeated message delivered every morning. Each day begins with either a signal of nourishment and repair or a signal of stress and conservation. Over years, the body faithfully follows those instructions. Sarcopenia, in this sense, is not a sudden disease but a long-term response to environmental cues, especially nutritional ones. What makes this realization powerful is that signals can be changed. The body does not remember how old you are, it responds to what it is given today. When breakfast shifts from sugar and stimulants to nourishment that supports blood sugar stability and provides usable nutrients, the metabolic environment changes. Inflammation decreases, stress hormones normalize, and muscles become more responsive to rebuilding signals. This does not mean muscle suddenly grows overnight, but it does mean the direction of change reverses, and even subtle improvements in strength and stability become noticeable. Many people are surprised to discover that improving breakfast quality leads to better balance and leg strength even before any formal exercise program is introduced. This happens because nerve-muscle communication improves when blood sugar is stable and minerals are available. Strength is not only about muscle size, it is also about how efficiently nerves activate muscle fibers. Poor morning nutrition disrupts this communication, while proper nourishment restores it, sometimes within a short period of time. The tragedy is that sarcopenia is often treated as an unavoidable part of aging rather than a modifiable condition influenced by daily choices. When people believe decline is inevitable, they stop looking for solutions. They accept weakness as normal and adjust their lives downward, avoiding stairs, limiting movement, and becoming more sedentary. This behavior then reinforces muscle loss, creating a self-perpetuating cycle that began with something as simple as breakfast habits. Understanding that muscle loss after 60 is largely driven by signaling rather than age alone changes the entire conversation about aging. It shifts the focus from limitation to opportunity, from resignation to participation. The body is still capable of adaptation, still responsive to care, and still governed by biological principles that reward consistency. Breakfast is not just a meal, it is a message repeated every day, shaping how the body allocates resources and defines priorities. When that message consistently tells the body that energy is unstable, nutrients are scarce, and stress is high, muscle becomes optional. When the message changes to one of nourishment, stability, and support, muscle regains its value. Over time, this difference determines whether aging is accompanied by frailty or resilience, dependence or independence, fear of falling or confidence in movement, not because the body suddenly becomes young again, but because it is finally being given a reason to stay strong. Most people never realize that the breakfast foods they have trusted for years are quietly working against their muscles, especially after the age of 60, because these foods trigger powerful blood sugar and insulin responses that directly interfere with muscle repair and strength. Toast, cereal, oats sweetened with honey, fruit juice, jam, pastries, and even many products marketed as healthy are dominated by carbohydrates that break down rapidly into glucose. When this glucose enters the bloodstream too quickly, the body responds with a surge of insulin, a hormone whose primary function is energy storage rather than tissue rebuilding. For aging muscles that already struggle to respond to growth signals, this hormonal environment becomes a major barrier to maintaining strength. Insulin itself is not the enemy, but constant insulin spikes are. Insulin is meant to rise after meals and fall between them, creating a rhythm that allows the body to alternate between storage and repair. When breakfast causes a sharp spike, followed by a crash, that rhythm is disrupted. In older adults, this disruption is especially damaging because muscles require longer periods of low insulin to activate repair pathways. When insulin remains elevated or fluctuates wildly, muscle protein synthesis is suppressed, and the body becomes more inclined to break down existing muscle tissue to meet its immediate needs. One of the most misunderstood aspects of insulin is that it competes with other important hormones for attention. High insulin levels suppress growth hormone and interfere with the action of insulin, like growth factor, both of which are critical for muscle maintenance. After 60, natural levels of these hormones are already lower, so anything that further inhibits their activity accelerates muscle loss. A sugary breakfast may provide a brief sense of energy, but it does so at the expense of the hormonal environment required for strength and stability. Blood sugar spikes also increase inflammation, which is another silent driver of muscle breakdown. When glucose levels rise rapidly, the body produces more reactive oxygen species, increasing oxidative stress. Over time, this damages muscle cells and impairs mitochondrial function, making muscles weaker and more fatigable. Inflammation also interferes with insulin signaling itself, creating a cycle where the body produces more insulin to manage blood sugar, further suppressing muscle repair. This cycle is subtle and slow, but its effects accumulate, especially in the large muscles of the legs. The legs are uniquely vulnerable because they contain a high proportion of fast-twitch muscle fibers that are particularly sensitive to metabolic stress. These fibers are essential for balance, climbing stairs, and preventing falls. When blood sugar and insulin are chronically dysregulated, these fibers shrink first. This is why many older adults notice difficulty with sudden movements or feel unsteady when changing direction. It is not simply weakness, it is a loss of functional muscle quality driven by metabolic signals that begin with breakfast. Many people assume that eating carbohydrates in the morning is harmless because the body can use them for energy throughout the day. What they do not realize is that after 60, insulin sensitivity often declines, meaning the same amount of carbohydrate produces a much larger insulin response. This exaggerated response turns what once felt like a normal breakfast into a metabolic stressor. Instead of fueling activity, it leaves the body dealing with excess glucose, diverting resources away from muscle repair and toward damage control. Another hidden problem with high-carbohydrate breakfasts is that they crowd out protein and essential nutrients. When the plate is filled with bread, cereal, or fruit juice, there is little room left for foods that provide amino acids and minerals. This creates a double burden on muscles. Not only are they exposed to insulin spikes that suppress repair, but they also lack the raw materials needed to rebuild. Over time, this combination guarantees a gradual decline in strength, even in people who believe they are eating enough. Blood sugar crashes following insulin spikes further worsen the situation. When glucose drops rapidly, the body releases stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline to stabilize levels. Cortisol, in particular, breaks down muscle tissue to release amino acids into the bloodstream. When this process happens occasionally, the body recovers. When it happens daily, muscle becomes a convenient fuel source. The legs, containing large amounts of muscle mass, become prime targets for this breakdown, leading to thinner thighs, weaker calves, and reduced endurance. Balance problems often emerge long before people recognize muscle loss. This is because insulin spikes and crashes also affect the nervous system. The brain relies on stable glucose levels, and fluctuations impair coordination and reaction time. When nerve signaling becomes less precise, muscles do not activate as effectively, increasing the risk of missteps and falls. This neurological component of weakness is often overlooked, yet it is directly linked to blood sugar instability caused by poor breakfast choices. The psychological effects of insulin-driven breakfasts also play a role. Rapid rises and falls in blood sugar can create feelings of fatigue, irritability, and low motivation. When energy feels unpredictable, people move less. Reduced movement further accelerates muscle loss, creating a feedback loop where diet influences behavior and behavior reinforces physical decline. Over time, this loop becomes deeply ingrained, making it harder to reverse without addressing the root cause. Many so-called healthy breakfast options worsen this problem because they are marketed as nutritious while still causing significant glucose spikes. Whole grain cereals, flavored yogurts, smoothies made primarily from fruit, and low-fat products often contain hidden sugars or rapidly digestible carbohydrates. These foods may contain some vitamins, but their metabolic impact undermines muscle health in older adults. The body does not evaluate health claims, it responds to biochemical signals, and these signals often contradict marketing messages. Another overlooked issue is that insulin spikes in the morning can influence eating patterns for the rest of the day. A high-carbohydrate breakfast increases hunger and cravings, leading to more frequent snacking and sustained insulin elevation. When insulin rarely drops, the body spends less time in repair mode. Muscle protein synthesis requires periods of metabolic calm, and constant feeding prevents this state from occurring. Over time, muscles remain in a state of neglect, slowly shrinking despite regular food intake. The cumulative effect of these processes is a gradual loss of leg strength that feels mysterious and frustrating. People often blame arthritis, aging joints, or lack of exercise without realizing that their muscles are being metabolically discouraged from staying strong. Exercise alone cannot fully overcome this barrier if the hormonal environment created by breakfast remains hostile to muscle repair. Nutrition sets the stage, and when the stage is wrong, the performance suffers. Insulin-driven muscle loss also explains why some people experience sudden declines after periods of illness or inactivity. During these times, insulin sensitivity worsens and carbohydrate-heavy breakfasts become even more damaging. Muscle loss accelerates and recovery becomes more difficult. This vulnerability highlights how important metabolic stability is for preserving strength, especially during aging. What makes this situation particularly tragic is that it is largely preventable. The body is not broken, it is responding appropriately to the signals it receives. When those signals change, the response changes. Reducing blood sugar spikes at breakfast allows insulin to fall sooner, giving muscles access to repair pathways that have been suppressed. Inflammation decreases, stress hormones normalize, and nerve-muscle communication improves. These changes create a foundation where strength can be maintained and even regained. Many people are surprised to discover that simply stabilizing blood sugar in the morning leads to better energy, clearer thinking, and improved physical confidence. This happens because the body is no longer constantly correcting metabolic disturbances. Resources can be redirected toward maintenance and repair rather than emergency management. Muscles, especially in the legs, benefit from this shift because they are highly responsive to improved metabolic conditions. The idea that breakfast can either protect or undermine leg strength challenges long-held beliefs about aging. It suggests that weakness is not an inevitable decline but a consequence of repeated metabolic stress. When that stress is removed, the body demonstrates resilience even in later years. Muscle tissue, though slower to respond than in youth, still adapts to supportive conditions. Understanding the role of insulin and blood sugar in muscle loss empowers people to take control of their aging process. Instead of focusing solely on exercise or supplements, attention can be directed toward the foundational signals sent at the start of each day. Breakfast becomes not just a habit, but a strategic choice that influences strength, balance, and independence. Over time, consistent blood sugar stability reshapes the body's priorities. Muscle is no longer viewed as expendable but as an asset worth maintaining. This shift does not happen overnight, but it begins immediately, with the first meal of the day determining whether the body moves toward resilience or continued decline, not because aging stops, but because the metabolic environment finally supports strength rather than silently dismantling it. A breakfast built around protein, minerals, and blood sugar stability sends a very different message to the body than the typical high-carbohydrate morning meal, especially after the age of 60, when muscles have become less responsive to weak signals and more dependent on clear, supportive ones. At this stage of life, the body is not looking for quick energy. It is looking for assurance that resources are available for maintenance and repair. When that assurance is delivered first thing in the morning, the body responds with measurable improvements in strength, balance, and confidence, sometimes within a surprisingly short time frame. Protein plays a central role in this process because it provides the amino acids required to repair and maintain muscle tissue. After 60, the body experiences anabolic resistance, meaning muscles require a higher quality and often a slightly higher amount of protein to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. This does not mean overeating, but it does mean prioritizing protein in a form that the body can easily digest and absorb. When protein is consumed at breakfast, it breaks the overnight fast with building blocks rather than sugar, immediately shifting the body from breakdown mode into repair mode. One of the most important amino acids in this context is leucine, which acts as a trigger for muscle protein synthesis. Leucine tells the body that sufficient resources are present and that rebuilding muscle is safe and worthwhile. Without this signal, muscles remain in a state of conservation. A protein-rich breakfast provides this trigger at a time when muscles are most receptive, making it far more effective than spreading small amounts of protein across carbohydrate-heavy meals later in the day. However, protein alone is not enough. Minerals are equally critical because they allow muscles and nerves to communicate effectively. Magnesium supports muscle relaxation and energy production. Potassium regulates muscle contraction. Sodium helps maintain fluid balance and nerve signaling, and calcium plays a role in muscle activation. After 60, deficiencies in these minerals are common due to reduced intake, medication use, and changes in absorption. A breakfast that includes mineral-rich whole foods replenishes these elements after the overnight fast, immediately improving muscle function. When minerals are restored, nerve signals become clearer and more precise. This improvement often translates into better balance and coordination before any visible change in muscle size occurs. People may notice they stand up more easily, feel steadier when walking, or experience fewer muscle cramps. These changes are not imagined, they reflect improved neuromuscular communication driven by proper nourishment. Blood sugar stability is the third essential component of this breakfast strategy. When protein and minerals are consumed without a heavy load of refined carbohydrates, glucose enters the bloodstream slowly and predictably. Insulin rises gently rather than spiking, allowing it to fall sooner and giving the body access to repair pathways that remain blocked during prolonged insulin elevation. This metabolic calm is essential for muscle protein synthesis, especially in older adults whose muscles require longer periods of low insulin to rebuild. Stable blood sugar also reduces the release of stress hormones such as cortisol. Cortisol breaks down muscle tissue when energy is scarce or blood sugar is unstable. By preventing large glucose fluctuations, a balanced breakfast reduces the need for cortisol-driven muscle breakdown. This protective effect can be felt quickly, as muscles experience less internal stress and fatigue during everyday movements. The legs benefit disproportionately from this shift because they contain large muscle groups that are highly sensitive to metabolic conditions. Improved blood sugar control enhances blood flow and nutrient delivery to these muscles, supporting both endurance and strength. Many people report that their legs feel lighter and more responsive within a day or two of changing their breakfast, not because new muscle has formed, but because existing muscle fibers are functioning more efficiently. Another reason improvements can appear within 24 hours is reduced inflammation. High carbohydrate, sugar-based breakfasts promote inflammation, which interferes with muscle contraction and nerve signaling. A protein-rich, mineral-dense breakfast lowers inflammatory markers by avoiding glucose spikes and providing nutrients that support cellular repair. When inflammation decreases, muscles move more freely and respond better to neural input, creating an immediate sense of increased strength. Digestion also plays a role in these rapid changes. Protein stimulates stomach acid production, which tends to decline with age. Improved stomach acid enhances nutrient absorption not only from breakfast but from subsequent meals as well. This cascading effect means that one well-designed breakfast can improve overall nutrient uptake throughout the day, further supporting muscle health. Satiety is another important benefit. Protein and fat promote a feeling of fullness that lasts for hours, reducing the urge to snack on sugary foods. This naturally extends periods of low insulin, giving muscles more time in a repair-friendly environment. Over time, this pattern trains the body to rely less on constant glucose intake and more on stored energy, improving metabolic flexibility and protecting muscle tissue. The psychological impact of a stable, nourishing breakfast should not be underestimated. When energy feels steady rather than erratic, people are more likely to move, walk, and engage in light activity. Movement reinforces the muscle building signal sent by nutrition. Even gentle activity becomes more effective when supported by proper nourishment, amplifying the benefits of breakfast without requiring intense exercise. For many older adults, the realization that strength can improve without drastic measures is empowering. It reframes aging as a process that can be influenced rather than endured. The body's rapid response to improved breakfast quality serves as evidence that it is still listening and adapting. This feedback encourages consistency, which is crucial for long-term results. Over time, repeated mornings of protein-rich, mineral-dense blood sugar, stable breakfasts create a new baseline. Muscles become less resistant to growth signals, inflammation remains lower, and nerve-muscle communication improves. Strength gains that begin as subtle improvements in stability and confidence can evolve into measurable increases in muscle mass and endurance. This approach also supports joint health. As stronger muscles reduce strain on joints and improve alignment, many people notice less knee or hip discomfort as leg muscles regain strength and coordination. This further encourages movement, creating a positive cycle where nourishment and activity reinforce each other. The idea that breakfast can influence leg strength within 24 hours challenges conventional thinking about muscle growth. It highlights the difference between building new muscle tissue, which takes time, and improving the function of existing muscle, which can happen quickly when metabolic barriers are removed. By stabilizing blood sugar, reducing inflammation, and supplying essential nutrients, a well-designed breakfast unlocks strength that was already present but suppressed. Consistency is key. One nourishing breakfast can produce noticeable changes, but lasting improvements require repetition. Each morning becomes an opportunity to reinforce the message that muscle maintenance is a priority. Over weeks and months, this message reshapes the body's composition and capabilities, supporting independence and mobility well into later life. Ultimately, a protein-rich, mineral-dense, blood sugar stabilizing breakfast is not a temporary intervention, but a foundational habit that aligns with the body's natural design. It respects the changing needs of aging muscles and provides what they require to function well. The rapid improvements many people experience serve as a reminder that decline is not always due to irreversible damage, but often due to missing signals that can be restored with something as simple and consistent as the first meal of the day. As people move beyond the age of 60, the conversation around muscle health often becomes overly focused on protein alone, as if simply eating more of it will automatically restore strength and function. But this narrow view misses several critical pieces of the puzzle. Muscles do not operate in isolation, and they are not built from protein in a vacuum. They depend on a complex network of minerals, fats, enzymes, hormones, nerves, and an environment free from excessive inflammation. When any of these elements are missing or impaired, protein cannot do its job effectively, no matter how much of it is consumed. Minerals are among the most overlooked contributors to muscle health, yet they are absolutely essential for every muscle contraction and relaxation cycle. Magnesium, for example, allows muscles to relax after contraction. Without adequate magnesium, muscles remain tense, fatigue easily, and become more prone to cramps and weakness. Potassium is necessary for electrical signaling within muscle cells, helping muscles respond quickly and accurately to nerve impulses. Calcium triggers muscle contraction itself, while sodium maintains fluid balance and supports nerve transmission. When these minerals are deficient, muscle function becomes inefficient, uncoordinated, and weak, even if muscle mass appears unchanged. Modern diets, especially in older adults, are often severely lacking in these minerals. Highly processed foods contain fewer minerals than whole foods, and many medications commonly prescribed after 60 further deplete mineral stores or interfere with absorption. Diuretics, acid blockers, and certain blood pressure medications can all contribute to mineral loss. When breakfast and daily meals fail to replenish these minerals, the body adapts by reducing muscle performance and eventually muscle mass because it cannot sustain proper function without the necessary electrical and chemical balance. Healthy fats are another critical yet frequently misunderstood component of muscle repair and nerve function. Fats are not just a source of energy, they are structural components of cell membranes and essential for hormone production. Nerves, which control muscle activation, are insulated by fatty myelin sheaths. When dietary fat intake is too low or dominated by damaged industrial oils, nerve signaling becomes less efficient. This leads to delayed muscle activation, reduced coordination, and a feeling of weakness that is often mistaken for muscle loss alone. Hormones that protect and rebuild muscle, such as testosterone, estrogen, and growth hormone, are synthesized from cholesterol and fatty acids. When fat intake is inadequate, or when inflammation disrupts hormone signaling, these hormones decline further, accelerating muscle breakdown. This is particularly important after 60, when hormonal levels are already lower. Proper fats in the diet support what remains of the body's natural anabolic capacity, allowing protein and minerals to be used more effectively. Digestion plays a central role in determining whether nutrients actually reach the muscles. With age, stomach acid production often declines, impairing the breakdown of protein and the absorption of minerals like magnesium, calcium, and zinc. Without sufficient stomach acid, protein is only partially digested, and amino acids may not be available in the quantities muscles require. This means that even a protein-rich meal can fail to support muscle repair if digestion is compromised. Inflammation further complicates this process. Chronic, low-grade inflammation is common in older adults due to poor diet, stress, gut imbalance, and metabolic dysfunction. Inflammatory molecules interfere with insulin signaling, reduce nutrient uptake by muscle cells, and activate pathways that promote muscle breakdown. When inflammation is present, the body prioritizes immune responses over tissue repair. Muscles become collateral damage in this state, slowly losing mass and strength despite adequate calorie intake. Highly processed foods, excess sugar, and refined carbohydrates are major drivers of inflammation. They disrupt gut health, increase oxidative stress, and promote insulin resistance. In this environment, protein is often diverted away from muscle repair and used instead for immune responses or converted into glucose. This inefficiency frustrates many people who believe they are eating well yet continue to lose strength. The nervous system is another essential factor in muscle function that is rarely discussed. Muscles contract only when they receive clear signals from nerves. These signals depend on stable blood sugar, adequate minerals, and healthy fats. When blood sugar fluctuates wildly, nerve firing becomes erratic. When minerals are low, signals weaken. When inflammation damages nerve tissue, communication slows. The result is a muscle that exists but cannot be fully activated, leading to functional weakness even before significant muscle loss occurs. This explains why some people feel stronger almost immediately when they correct mineral deficiencies and stabilize blood sugar. The muscle tissue was already there, but it was underperforming due to poor signaling. Once the nervous system regains clarity and efficiency, strength and coordination improve rapidly. This improvement is often felt as better balance, quicker reactions, and greater confidence in movement rather than dramatic increases in muscle size. Another often overlooked factor is hydration, which is closely tied to mineral balance. Muscles are highly dependent on proper fluid levels to function optimally. Dehydration, even mild, reduces strength and endurance. Minerals help retain fluid within cells, maintaining the electrical gradients required for muscle contraction. When breakfast lacks both minerals and hydration supporting foods, muscles begin the day at a disadvantage. Inflammation also affects joints and connective tissue, indirectly impacting muscle performance. When joints are inflamed or stiff, muscles alter their activation patterns to protect the joint, leading to imbalances and weakness. Reducing inflammation through proper nutrition allows muscles to move through their full range of motion, restoring natural strength patterns and reducing the risk of injury or falls. Protein, minerals, fats, digestion, and inflammation are therefore not separate issues but interconnected elements of the same system. When one is neglected, the others suffer. A diet that focuses solely on protein without addressing mineral intake may lead to cramps and fatigue. A diet that includes protein and minerals but ignores fat may impair hormone and nerve function. A diet that includes all three but allows chronic inflammation to persist will still undermine muscle repair. This interconnectedness explains why quick fixes and isolated supplements often fail to deliver lasting results. Muscle health after 60 requires a supportive internal environment, not just one nutrient in isolation. When the environment is right, muscles respond even with modest amounts of protein and gentle activity. When the environment is hostile, no amount of protein can overcome the barriers to repair. Understanding this broader picture shifts the focus from chasing numbers to restoring balance. It encourages attention to food quality, preparation, digestion, and metabolic health rather than simply counting grams of protein. It also highlights the importance of consistency, as minerals and fats must be replenished regularly, and inflammation must be kept low over time to protect muscle tissue. Many people experience relief and renewed hope when they realize that weakness is not always due to irreversible muscle loss but often due to impaired function. Addressing mineral deficiencies, supporting digestion, reducing inflammation, and including healthy fats can unlock strength that seemed lost. This perspective transforms aging from a narrative of decline into one of adaptation and maintenance. As the body regains balance, muscles become more responsive to movement and exercise. Even light activity becomes more effective, reinforcing the repair signals initiated by nutrition. This synergy between nourishment and movement is what allows older adults to regain stability, protect their joints, and maintain independence. Ultimately, muscle repair after 60 is not about forcing the body to grow against its will, but about removing the obstacles that prevent it from doing what it is naturally designed to do. When minerals are sufficient, fats are supportive, digestion is efficient, and inflammation is controlled, protein can finally fulfill its role. Muscles regain function, nerves communicate clearly, and strength becomes something that can be felt and trusted again, not as a fleeting improvement but as a sustainable foundation for movement and confidence in daily life. The idea that the body loses its ability to rebuild muscle after a certain age has been repeated so often that many people accept it as an unquestionable truth. Yet this belief does not align with how the human body actually functions. The body does not operate according to birthdays or calendars. It responds to signals, resources, and demands placed upon it. Even well beyond the age of 60, the body retains an extraordinary capacity to adapt when given the right conditions. Muscle tissue remains dynamic, capable of repair and renewal, not because aging stops but because biology continues to follow its fundamental rules. What changes with age is not the body's potential, but the clarity of the signals it receives. Hormonal levels decline, digestion slows, and recovery takes longer, but none of these changes eliminate the body's responsiveness. They simply raise the threshold for stimulation. Muscles require clearer, stronger, and more consistent messages that they are needed and supported. When those messages are delivered through proper nutrition, movement, and metabolic balance, the body responds in ways that surprise many people who believe decline was inevitable. One of the most powerful of these signals is the daily choice of what and when to eat. Nutrition is not just fuel, it is information. Every meal communicates expectations to the body about the environment it inhabits. Meals that create blood sugar spikes, inflammation, and nutrient deficiencies tell the body that resources are unstable and that conservation is necessary. In such an environment, muscle is viewed as a luxury. Meals that provide stability, nourishment, and essential building blocks send the opposite message, telling the body that maintenance and repair are safe investments. Starting the day with nourishment that supports muscle health reinforces this message at the most influential time. After hours of fasting, the body is especially receptive to cues. When it receives protein, minerals, healthy fats, and stable energy rather than sugar and stimulants, it shifts out of survival mode and into repair mode. This shift does not depend on age, it depends on conditions. The same biological mechanisms that allowed muscle growth in youth remain present later in life, albeit less sensitive and more selective. Movement is another critical signal, but its effectiveness depends on the internal environment created by nutrition. Exercise in a state of inflammation, nutrient deficiency, or hormonal imbalance often feels exhausting and unproductive. Exercise in a nourished state feels supportive and restorative. This is why some older adults experience rapid improvements in strength and endurance once nutrition is addressed, even before increasing physical activity. The body finally has the resources it needs to respond to movement. The body's ability to rebuild muscle also depends on reducing the factors that actively promote muscle breakdown. Chronic stress, poor sleep, unstable blood sugar, and inflammation all activate catabolic pathways that dismantle muscle tissue. Addressing these factors does not require extreme interventions, it requires consistency in daily habits that calm the nervous system and support metabolic stability. When breakdown signals are reduced, repair signals become more effective by default. Many people are astonished to discover that improvements in strength can occur at ages once thought impossible for muscle recovery. This does not mean the body becomes young again, but it does mean it becomes functional. Muscle fibers that were dormant or underused can be reactivated. Nerve connections can become more efficient. Coordination can improve. These changes enhance strength and stability in ways that feel immediate and meaningful in daily life. The belief that muscle loss is irreversible often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When people assume weakness is unavoidable, they reduce activity, eat less, and accept discomfort as normal. This behavior reinforces decline. When that belief is challenged and replaced with the understanding that the body still responds to care, behavior changes. People move more, nourish themselves better, and pay attention to recovery. The body responds to these changes, confirming that the original belief was limiting rather than accurate. Independence in later life is closely tied to muscle strength, particularly in the legs. Standing up, walking, climbing stairs, and maintaining balance all depend on muscle function. Preserving and rebuilding muscle therefore protects more than physical ability, it protects confidence and autonomy. When people feel strong enough to trust their bodies, they engage more fully with life. This engagement further reinforces physical health, creating a virtuous cycle. The body's responsiveness to proper signals is also evident in recovery from setbacks. Illness, injury, or periods of inactivity often lead to rapid muscle loss in older adults. However, when nutrition and movement are restored, recovery can occur more quickly than expected. This resilience demonstrates that the capacity for rebuilding never fully disappears. It becomes dormant, waiting for conditions that justify reactivation. Consistency is far more important than intensity in this process. Small, repeated signals accumulate over time. A nourishing breakfast eaten daily has a greater impact than occasional bursts of effort. Gentle movement performed consistently is more effective than sporadic, intense exercise. The body values predictability and adapts to what it experiences most often. This principle holds true at every age. Understanding that muscle health remains within reach shifts the narrative around aging. Instead of focusing on limitations, attention can be placed on optimization within current circumstances. The goal is not to achieve peak athletic performance, but to maintain strength sufficient for daily living, balance, and confidence. This goal is realistic and achievable for many people well into advanced age. The body's design favors survival, but survival includes the ability to move, gather resources, and interact with the environment. Muscle supports all of these functions. When the body is given reasons to maintain muscle, it does so. Those reasons include adequate nutrition, stable energy, manageable stress, and regular movement. None of these are exclusive to youth. The rapid improvements some people experience after changing their habits often feel miraculous, but they are simply the result of biological systems operating as intended. The body recognizes favorable conditions and responds accordingly. This response reinforces the understanding that decline is not solely dictated by time but by context. As people experience renewed strength, their relationship with their bodies often changes. Fear gives way to trust. Hesitation gives way to confidence. This psychological shift further enhances physical capability, as relaxed movement is more efficient and less prone to injury. Strength becomes something that is felt internally rather than measured externally. The idea that the body remains capable of rebuilding muscle at any age offers hope grounded in physiology rather than wishful thinking. It encourages a proactive approach to aging that respects the body's needs and limitations while recognizing its enduring adaptability. By providing the right signals consistently, the body responds not with resistance but with cooperation. Ultimately, muscle health after 60 is not about defying age, but about aligning with biological principles that have always governed the human body. When those principles are honored through nourishment, balance, and movement, strength becomes a natural outcome rather than an exception. The body does not ask how old you are, it asks what you are giving it and what you are asking it to do, and it responds accordingly, preserving function and independence for as long as the conditions allow.